Hello, it's the Security Weekly News, episode 331. I'm Doug White, and it's Friday the 6th of October, 2023. We've got Feet, Google, Apple, Predator versus Lemurs, r77, Qualcomm, Qakbot, Deepfakes, more news, and Aaran Leyland on the Security Weekly News.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for Security Weekly News.
AI, accelerated cloud adoption, and hybrid work are fundamentally shifting how business gets done. The old way of securing your people, apps, and data doesn't work and scale anymore. To stay ahead, today's organizations need to reimagine their security and networking infrastructure with a cloud-first, unified SASE architecture. Join Palo Alto Networks and leading technologists from across the globe for SASE Converge 2023, a two-day virtual experience, November 15th and 16th. Revealing how SASE powered by advanced AI can drive better security and networking outcomes. Register today at securityweekly.com/Palo Alto.
Created in 2005 and hosted by security industry veterans, Paul Security Weekly is your source for in-depth coverage of the latest vulnerabilities, exploits, and security research. Our weekly security news discussion dives deep into the security issues we face today and potential solutions in a fun and lively atmosphere. Each week we bring on guests from the security community to learn about their journey and discuss topics relevant to their work and research. You can also subscribe to our show by visiting securityweekly.com/subscribe or look for Paul Security Weekly in your favorite podcast catcher. We've recorded a ton of content over the years, so we created Spotify playlists featuring some of our favorite episodes, including interviews with Marcus Random, John McAfee, and Chris Roberts, to name a few. You can find them at securityweekly.com/starter packs.
All right, welcome to the Security Weekly News. I'm Doug White. This week, Google has released their October updates for Android, which addresses 53 unique vulnerabilities and 2 known to be actively exploited. They even go so far as to describe the actively exploited ones as being targeted exploits, saying they have, quote, indications that they may be under limited targeted exploitation. I don't exactly know what that means. I mean, in terms of, I get the general context, but I don't really know what it means. Like, does that mean like a specific group is targeting them or what? I mean, it's not really clear to me what that means exactly, but I presume it implies maybe something like Pegasus or Predator where they're actually, figuring out ways to push things on and it's a specific group of people, but I don't know, it could mean a lot of things. One of the flaws is a buffer overflow in the open source library libwebp, and that's sort of a theme today about open source library stuff and these open source supply chain problems and so forth. But libwebp is used by a lot of products like Chrome and Firefox, iOS, Teams, a lot of people use that. The other one is in the ARM Mali GPU drivers, which are used on Androids, and that's, of course, problematic. That one is a use after free memory issue, which can allow access or manipulation of data. So again, this starts to sound like the kind of stuff that they were using to install Predator and Pegasus and what, there's probably other ones of these we don't even know about yet. 5 of the fixes in the package are rated critical, and 2 are remote code execution issues. So very, very dangerous or very valuable if you happen to be somebody that's trying to install this kind of spyware. These are going to be released in 2 levels. The first level came out last week, and then the second one is out today. So if you are an Android user, it would be a good time to patch up these 0 days. In the same light, Apple patched their 17th 0 day of 2023 this week. This was a privilege escalation issue that resides in the kernel and was discovered targeting both iPhone and iPad devices. Apple said it was aware of a report that this issue may have been actively exploited against versions of iOS before 16.6. The current versions are in the 17s, but the 16s are still supported. So the last 0 day Apple had before this was on the 22nd of September. The general comment about this one was that despite Apple being apparently a focus, many of the 0 days that they're encountering this year are based in open source software that's used by many different vendors, including Microsoft and Google and so forth. And so maybe this really isn't another Apple 0 day, but it's more of another open source 0 day. I mean, and you and I together have been talking about this for years and years and years, right? I mean, you've been listening to me for a long time, and we've been talking about this for years and talking about how we really need to figure out how to get a handle on supply chain APIs and supply chain components that are going into all these different apps, because it's really hard to manage. And we don't know what's in the lib of the lib of the lib. I mean, who am I? Augustus de Morgan? I mean, too obscure? I don't know. I mean, anybody laughing? It seems pretty dead quiet out there. Of course, Augustus de Morgan was ripping off Jonathan Swift, if you didn't know. I mean, it was kind of a rap battle of the 18th century kind of thing, although Augustus de Morgan was dead by then. But Jonathan Swift was dead by then. Augustus de Morgan wasn't dead by then. But I mean, if you say Swift, Swift, Swift 3 times, either Jonathan's ghost will appear and cut off your left ear, or maybe Taylor Swift's security shows up and beats you senseless with an NFL helmet. I'm not sure. You got to be careful when you start summoning people in front of a mirror. But anyway, don't be smugger Apple people, because you also need to patch up. So everybody, both of the main iPhone and Android groups this week, patches are in order. And I just saw a new patch came out today on iPhone, so they're still worrying about it. In that same vein, Madagascar, yes, that cool island off the coast of Africa where they have these lemur things, that Madagascar, has been found to have purchased and leveraged Predator to conduct political domestic surveillance ahead of a presidential election in November. Coming soon to an election process near you. The report was from Sequoia. I guess I'm saying that right. It's not spelled like sequoia trees. It's like Sekoia, Sequoia, but it seems the same. Sequoia said the effort was a watering hole attack with links to download this spyware in WordPress blogs, which contained legit articles taken from the Madagascan newspaper Midi Madagascar. Sorry, Madagascans, if I mispronounced it. You'll never invite me there ever. But if you are searching for that legitimate story in there, you may have ended up on that website. And the malicious links were obscured by shortening and so forth. And then they were able to install Predator on people's phones. Other assessments showed that nations all across the Middle East and Africa and elsewhere have been using Predator to monitor citizens in various capacities. Angola has purchased it, as has Kazakhstan. Sequoia said that active checks of infrastructure clusters related to the spyware found currently 121 active domain names, including Angola, Egypt, and others in the Persian Gulf. Now, Citrox is a developer of this product, and they target both Android and iOS devices, and it was recently being delivered against targets in Egypt, particularly political targets, using a zero-click attack. So Citrox, of course, says they only sell to legitimate government and police interests, which, of course, includes the Rhodesian secret police and all that kind of fun stuff. So it's probably coming soon to all of us. It's typically being installed by 0 days or other phishing attacks. So be careful unless you want politicians monitoring what you're up to, what you're doing, and so forth and so on. Because obviously, if extremist politicians are using this right now, other politicians are going to want to do it too, and pretty soon, who knows what will be going on, and it's kind of scary. Well, another supply chain attack then that targets the NPM platform has been found that is in the same ilk as all these other ones. It's not the whole Jonathan Swift versus Augustus de Morgan stuff, but it's rather an open source supply chain issue. So Reversing Labs was involved in this one, and Reversing Labs basically said that issues first appeared as a typosquatting campaign back in August. The site was pushing a malicious package, and this is why I brought this up in the same context. The package called node-hide-console-window, which then downloaded a Discord bot that plants an open source rootkit called r77. Now, Reversing Labs said this was the first time they had seen a malicious open source package delivering rootkit functionality, so this may indicate I thought that statement was rather broad, but maybe there's more to it than that. But they basically said that open source is growing as a threat vector. The node-hide-console-window package is a legitimate NPM package, which can allow the developer to toggle an app console window, toggle the app console window visibility, but the node-hide-console-windows, plural, package is malicious. Ooh. Yeah, those are tough. I mean, this is something we all need to be thinking about, because even if you're a professional developer, you're somebody who just writes an occasional script or whatever, almost everything now has the ability to, from Python to everything, has the ability to add libraries that do, functional things for you. And people do this all the time. I've seen people that were doing development who just installed libraries they didn't even necessarily need, because they just said that's how we always do it. So whether it's embedding BC or something like that, or it's embedding some like random is one that I mean, and I do admit that almost all my programs I put random in, even when I don't need it, because it's just part of my template. Well, this is how this stuff gets started. But if you're going to download these packages, you're going to have to be very, very, very careful, because when you go looking for a package that somebody has told you need, especially when it's a legitimate package like this, and you accidentally grab the wrong one, it's going to be a problem. And so we're going to have to find a way to sign these things. And I mean, I know there's a way to sign them, but we don't really do it, religiously at this point. So we're going to have a way to sign them and validate where they came from, or we're going to keep getting popped by this, because open source means I've got the code. I can go in and tweak the code and add stuff to it easily and put up my own version of it. It's just a fork. So, are your devs right now downloading Finky Time instead of Funky Time? I mean, because it was like first on the list, and they just glanced and said, I need Funky Time. I got Finky Time. I don't know what Finky Time is, but not to mention, I mean, just offering you functionality that you want that's already coded. So you're trying to write something and you say, oh, I need a random number generator. You go, oh, well, here's one that's already existed. Remember Back Orifice? I remember Back Orifice. I mean, I was advising people not to install it, but everyone wanted to install it, including me, because guess what? It was a really useful tool. Now, yes, it had a backdoor in it, but I mean, and it was written by Low-Fat and the Cult of the Dead Cow and all this cool stuff. But I mean, it was very, very problematic and very shady, but it did provide functionality that people really, really, really wanted for their Windows servers. But you got to be thinking about ways to control this, because you're going to end up with Bag Dog instead of Big Dog library installed in your new app, and then you got a big problem, right? Or a bag problem. Who knows? Well, Qualcomm issued warnings about 3 0 days that were found in the GPU and compute DSP drivers they produce. Tag and Project Zero warned that all three of these may be under, here's this phrase again, I saw this phrase twice this week, under limited targeted exploitation. And I mean, I get the general idea of it, but it was interesting. I saw that phrase twice. Qualcomm says they have released security updates that address these issues in the Adreno GPU and the compute DSP drivers, and that impacted OEMs had been notified. Now, that doesn't help you much, because, you can't necessarily install Qualcomm drivers directly. One of the flaws is more than a year old, but that one is high severity, locally exploitable, and it's a use after free bug on some of their more popular chips. But there were 3 critical flaws in this release that are more recent. A memory corruption in the modem component that had a 9.8 score, a crypto issue in the data modem component that occurs during a TLS handshake had a 9.1, and a memory corruption in the WLAN firmware had a 9.8. So there were a total of 13 high-severity flaws and 3 critical flaws disclosed in this report. The 3 criticals are all remotely exploitable. The bad news is you can't do much about it. Updates will have to come through your manufacturer's channel, but in the meantime, if you're using these tools, you may want to consider, how you are mitigating and protecting people from getting to this stuff. So it's definitely an article worth reading if you have any Qualcomm components, and I have bad news for you. You have Qualcomm components. They're everywhere. So these are chips that are on every motherboard. They're on video cards. They're all over the place. So you may have to do a little bit of investigation if you don't have a solid inventory at hand. Well, just like when they raided the corner of Lexington and 125th Street and rounded up all the dealers, it wasn't long before some new dealers appeared and things went right back to normal. You know how they do a raid, they bring those things called Black Marias, and they round everybody up, and then 2 days later everything's right back the way it was. Well, according to this story, the evidence suggests that the Qakbot malware gang is back, even though they had their infrastructure seized and all their botnets dismantled back in August. We did that story. And I always wondered, is it Qakbot or Qakebot? I mean, it's kind of funny either way. I mean, I always heard somebody say Qakbot, but I mean, one's a duck and the other one's one of those pilgrim guys in a buckle hat, like it's sitting there. So it's like, is it a Quaker bot? I mean, those are pretty scary. Those are a lot scarier than ducks, right? I mean, the pilgrims are pretty awful, and ducks are not very scary at all, although they will chase you. I mean, I kept thinking it was Quake when I first saw it. I hadn't heard anybody say it, so I was thinking Quakebot. But that's how my brain works, I guess. But then somebody said Qakbot. We got an argument about it. And that's why I can't go back in that bar anymore. But you know what you did, Kurt. You know what you said. Anyway, yeah, right. Somebody's got to defend ducks. But anyway, Talos released a blog post yesterday, and they said the gang was distributing Ransom Night ransomware, which is a malware as a service tool, and Remco's backdoor via phishing emails in the weeks prior to being taken down. And that the raid only took down the command and control infrastructure, and it really didn't impact their whole spam delivery infrastructure. Talos said the metadata that they found indicated a link between Qakbot and Ransom Night and was found in a malicious LNK file, ironically, that was attached to an email lure which had been used in Qakbot campaigns previously. So threat researcher, and I'm going to apologize for the name in advance, Guilherme Venere, wrote a post about it and said that the new operation had been ongoing since the beginning of August and that it did not stop when the Qakbot infrastructure was taken down. They said they have not seen them distributing Qakbot after the takedown. Of course, if the command and controls and everything are gone, they take them a while to get that back up. But that they remained active and that they probably will choose to rebuild the Qakbot infrastructure and get all the way back in business pretty soon. So, good try, but it probably didn't accomplish very much in the end. It slowed them down for a month, and then they're coming right back. Well, deepfakes are coming. I mean, actually, they're already here, right? We've all seen some kind of deepfake at this point, but it's going to get a lot worse, I think, before it gets any better. Now, the other day, I saw this weird ad that was for some kind of liver cleanse. Now, I got to tell you, that's quackery to start with. Livers are self-cleansing. There's no such thing as a liver cleanse. Probably the best thing you can do for your liver. I'm not going to go there. But the ad was really weird. But it had a red flag on it to start with because it was called a liver cleanse. But then they actually showed a picture of some famous doctor. I've seen this guy before. I don't remember what his name is. But he was a famous doctor. I think he's in the Washington Post or something. And he's like holding his hands around a pair of glowing lungs. I'm like, wait, what? A liver cleanse, and the doctor's like doesn't know the difference in a liver and a lung? Okay, you bet. And I mean, and this stuff's been going on since Lucky Strike said 4 out of 5 doctors prefer Luckies for their lung balls. I mean, and of course the doctors probably got paid to say that, and they probably got free cigarettes or whatever, try Luckies today. But this is a thing now, and it's going to get a lot worse. Tom Hanks had put out a warning telling people to beware of an ad using his likeness and voice. Gayle King of CBS News shared a video that was using her likeness for a purported weight loss product and said first that she had heard of it was people started calling her asking, was she using it? What did she think about it? Hanks's ad was apparently promoting some kind of dental plan that used an AI version of him and his voice. Mr. Beast, well-known YouTube celebrity, shared a video of himself where his AI self was hucking an iPhone 15 Pro for $2 and claimed to be some kind of giveaway he was running. How do you stop this? I mean, I guess my AI will beat up your AI, and pretty soon the AIs are all going to be fighting the other AIs in a pit with switchblades? I mean, I'd pay to see that. But in the meantime, be careful. I mean, this is a pretty good article to start for you to maybe hand to your people. But I think you're going to my reading of it, I think you need to write some contextual advice on mitigation. The article didn't have a lot of, ideas about how do you avoid this other than just, be cynical, be critical, be skeptical, which you should always be anyway. I mean, I wasn't even sure how to mitigate it. I mean, if I see Tom Hanks telling me to buy something, I go buy it. How would you not? Well, he's so vain, he definitely thinks this song is about him. Please welcome to the stage, Mr. Aaran Leyland. Hi, Aaran.
Hey, Dr. Doug. That's such a nice song. I like that song.
It is a nice song.
It's probably a narcissistic song, though, is it?
No, it's not. It was an anti-narcissistic song. I mean, she was telling it was like Taylor. Joni Mitchell was basically writing a song like a lot of the Taylor Swift songs today that are like about somebody she'd been dating, and she was really angry with them, and so she wrote that song. It's supposedly about Warren Beatty, maybe. She never, I don't think, revealed who it was, but.
But then, if I don't listen to the words properly, and I actually think the song's about me, does that make me what the song's about?
Well, she was saying, "You're so vain. I bet you think this song is about you," but she was sort of implying maybe it was about a bunch of different people. I don't know. It's way complicated. We have to take a college liberal arts class to discuss it for a couple of years. And
we should do a show on how Taylor Swift affects cybersecurity.
Hey, I'm telling you, if Taylor Swift came out today and said, "Please stop opening these emails," people would stop opening these emails because they do listen to her.
And if we put Taylor Swift in the title of the show, I bet you we get millions of hits. Oh, my God.
I bet our views would double in a day till she sues us.
I won't say what they are now right on here because I'm probably not live, but I've seen what the viewer numbers are this week, and they are good.
It's because you're on. Once we put you on, the numbers went up. It was like Jason and I just aren't sexy enough for our audience, so we had to bring you in.
I've hacked the numbers.
Well, there is that, of course. We're all hacking the numbers. I go watch a show 10,000 times a week myself just to drive the views up. So.
That's why I use so many VPNs to change my IP address. Okay, right. I've got lots for us this week.
Right. I'm shutting up.
No, I'm shutting up first. With this week's story, I've placed a couple of links to the stories in the show notes, and one of them's named Rules of Engagement Issued to Hacktivists After Chaos. What a cool name. I bet you that'd get loads of hits. Probably why they wrote it, because it's not actually that much to do with the story. So the International Committee of the Red Cross, the ICRC, issues guidelines for hacktivists in war times. Which to me is a strange organization. Maybe you don't think so, but I think so, to be handing out cyber rules. The background is, so the ICRC has introduced rules urging hacktivists to adhere to international humanitarian law amid conflicts. Civilian-led cyber attacks have increasingly affected non-military entities like hospitals, banks, pharmacies, and also they're saying that hacktivists may endanger themselves by becoming legitimate military targets. So hacktivists, watch out for 500-pound bombs coming through your bedroom window or basement window from Russia. Okay. I wanted to look deeper today into the actual meaning of a hacktivist on an actual legal standpoint. So from a legal standpoint, a hacktivist may be seen through the lens of unauthorized access, engaging in activities that involve accessing computer systems without permission, data breach, stealing, leaking, or altering information from secured systems, and the famous hacktivist, most popular one probably, service disruption, intentionally disrupting services, for instance, or nearly always through DDoS attacks. In various jurisdictions, such activities are likely to be considered illegal. Yes, I would think so, even if the actors behind them claim to have altruistic or activist motives. Laws related to cybercrime would typically address the actions of hacktivists, such as the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act over there in America, with most of you guys, Computer Misuse Act in the United Kingdom with my guys, and the Cybercrime Convention in the Council of Europe. Okay, there is ambiguity and controversy, of course. What good story doesn't? Hacktivism resides in a somewhat murky and controversial area since it leverages illegal or unauthorized cyber activities, hacking, I guess, for what actors often claim are noble and altruistic purposes. That's the activism bit. So here lies the challenge in the discourse about hacktivism. Obviously balancing the legality of actions against the potential moral or ethical motivations driving them. More about that later. So I hear you ask, maybe, the new rules for cyber engagement are Avoid civilian targets. Cyber attacks shouldn't be directed at civilian entities. Okay, of course. Restrict indiscriminate malware. That goes back to what Doug was talking about earlier. Targeted, limited exploits, and I don't know many hacktivists that have that capability, to be honest. But anyway, do not use malware tools that harm both military and civilian objects without discrimination. Minimize civilian impact. Ensure possible impacts on civilians are avoided or minimized during a cyber attack on a military objective. Protect medical facilities. I don't know, probably the same in the US as well, but our NHS over here gets absolutely bashed. Cyber operations against medical and humanitarian facilities are off limits. Yes, they should be. Preserve vital objects. Objects crucial for population survival or that can unleash dangerous forces should not be targeted. Prohibit terror threats. Do not use threats of violence to instill terror in civilians. Russia. Prevent law violations. Avoid inciting violations of the international humanitarian law. And just if you want a catch-all statement, adhere to rules, comply with these guidelines, even if the opposing force does not. Okay, so one side can punch in the face, but the other's only allowed to say bad words. The global context, the escalation in offensive cyber activities from pro-Russia groups and the IT army of Ukraine highlights the gravity of hacktivist involvement in conflicts. And the ICRC is targeting particularly those groups involved in the Ukraine war with these new guidelines. We have some reactions from activist groups, and they're probably, as you would expect, I reckon the ChatGPT piece. I guess they didn't. I don't know where they got them from, but they're fun anyway. IT Army of Ukraine indicated a willingness to make best efforts to adhere by the rules, noting that have already avoided targeting healthcare. Good guys. Killnet, a Russian hacktivist group, expresses defiance with a representative questioning why they should heed the Red Cross. Yeah, why should you? Weird. Anonymous Sudan, who I talked about the other week, deems the new rules as not viable and sees breaking them as unavoidable for their cause, obviously because they have a low intelligence level, education level. Anonymous states that it is always operated on several principles similar to the ICRC's rules, but has lost faith in the organization and will not abide by its new guidelines. I'll move on before I get doxxed. So an expert says, Jake Moore, a global cybersecurity advisor, says that due to anonymity provided in a cyber realm and the complexity of attributing attacks, these rules might be ignored. Furthermore, cyber targets might inadvertently cause collateral damage due to network configurations and third-party involvements. Any of us in cyber will think that's pretty normal, pretty obvious. It's the fact that when these things are released in the wild, unless you've spent months and millions of pounds in research and development, Anyway, the significance, while these rules offer a structured guideline aligning with humanitarian considerations, the initial reactions from the various hacking groups suggest limited adherence at best, I guess. Governments are also urged by the ICRC to limit hacktivist activities and enforce existing laws, pointing towards a broader call for regulated cyber activities during conflicts. Yeah, cool. Anyway, so considerations on this. The ICRC's attempt to regulate cyber activities during conflicts underscores the evolving nature of warfare and raises queries on how international laws can be effectively applied and enforced in the cyber domain. Although when it comes to Ukraine, there appears to be absolutely no adherence to international laws on the Russian side, in my humble opinion anyway. There is an impending need for a concerted, even whatever, same word, similar, global effort to address cyber warfare norms and ethics involving state actors, international organizations, and us, the cyber community. I would suggest it would need to come from a more credible place. I don't know. Tell me what you think about that. I'd be interested, actually. I think I have a post on LinkedIn about it. The implications for us, the cybersecurity professionals, are as follows. Attribution challenges. The difficulty in attributing cyber attacks complicates the accountability framework, nearly makes it impossible, actually. Evolving threat landscape. Obviously, us professionals must stay abreast of the tactics, techniques, and procedures, TTPs, of hacktivist groups involved in geopolitical conflicts. But that's our job, right? So that's what we do. That's why we get paid the big bucks. And defensive strategies, ensuring robust cybersecurity defenses, especially for entities that might be misperceived as legitimate targets by hacktivist groups. Legal and ethical navigation, US professionals, or us professionals even, spit out my tongue, have to navigate complex scenarios where ethical and legal lines in cyberspace are continually tested and refined. So nearly finally, the publications of these rules by the ICRC sheds light on the pressing need to address the ethical and humanitarian aspects of cyber operations, especially during conflicts. While adherence to these rules remains to be seen, it puts forth a precedent for continued discourse on establishing cyber norms during warfare, which could shape future policy making and making global cybersecurity strategies. In my humble opinion, the publication of these rules appears in some quarters to legitimize hacktivism. What do you think about that? Does it? Which may seem fine to some, but as most of us love a Robin Hood type freedom fighter, but I'm guessing only when their views align with our personal views, which I believe is not ordinary to be the norm. Anyway, there we go. How do you like that? Back to Dr. Doug in the studio, who taught me everything he knows about Robin Hood, cute hats with feathers, lycra pants, and drinking mead.
Yay. I really like the Robin Hood stories too, because, when I was in Lincolnshire once, and, and everybody in the U.S. thinks about Prince John, who is this bad person, right, in the Robin Hood stories. And Richard the Lionheart was the good king. And then nobody in the U.S. knows that Prince John went on to become good King John, who signed the Magna Carta and all this other kind of stuff, because he was bad Prince John when he was in Robin Hood. And, of course, we learned all this from watching cartoons, so it must be true.
So what we're saying is one person's freedom fighter is another person's terrorist, and it might change.
Pretty much. I mean, that's the way it's always been. I mean, I think today Robin Hood would be a terrorist, but he would also be a freedom fighter, depending on which side of the road you're standing on. It's complicated. Thank you, Aaron. And
thank you.
Finally, Meta introduced AI chatbots to its family of apps, which includes Instagram, Facebook, Messenger, and WhatsApp. The bots have different personas, and of course, you can enable them so they can talk to you about cooking or travel. And they have ones based on Snoop Dogg and Mr. Beast, and so I guess a Snoop Dogg bot you can talk to. Well, there's apparently one called Carter, where that name came from. Carter, that is a practical dating coach. Now, I have a lot of issues with this in general, but of course, I think I'd rather talk to Snoop Dogg than to talk to a practical dating coach. But then again, that shows what I know about any of that. But apparently, Carter is about like that youth pastor you tried to ask about how to get lucky back in 1976. So it's pretty vanilla. And I mean, just to qualify this, I don't care if you want to you want to put macadamia nuts on your eyelids while somebody reads the Iliad in German backwards. If everybody's willing and going along and of age, it's okay with me. But the writer of the article said that they got kink shamed by the dating coach Carter for asking the question, "How could I find a girlfriend who is interested in swinging with me?" And got the response, "Whoa there! I don't think that's a good idea. I'm here to help you find healthy relationships and not engage in potentially harmful activities." Damn. I mean, I guess I should withhold all my questions about how to meet partners who are really into balloon animals, right? I mean, I'm going to try it, though. I guarantee you I'm going to go try this. You're hearing that squeaky sound right now, aren't you? Like, you filthy animals. But apparently, though, if you ask questions about feet, it refers you to some handy sites for foot fetishes. So, I mean, I guess I know something about the developer now, right? You think my balloon animals are dirty, you pig. I know what you want, Kevin. I do know what you want. You want to watch Natalie Portman walk barefoot through 3 liters of butterscotch pudding, you sick puppy. Anyway, it's an interesting article that makes me, think about bots and how they're going to affect our future and so forth. It also kind of makes me want to log in and talk to it for a while and just see what happens. Well, that's the news. Aaron will be doing the news next Tuesday. I will be live at the Millennium Alliance CISO meeting in the Biltmore Hotel in Miami on Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. So drop by if you're going to be there. I will see you again Friday, though, so don't despair. That's Security Weekly News.